Hi guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk about the human biofield, nervous system regulation, and brain waves, and how it all ties into each other. And we're going to start off with the human biofield, how you can tune it. It's also called the human biofield energy for those who are familiar with it. Not just humans have it, by the way, but we're just going to focus on humans for the purpose of this video. And I personally think this is one of the most important parts when you meet someone or when you're trying to work with someone. So let's start off with what is the human biofield and why is it so important? The human biofield is the unique electromagnetic field of the organism that can radiate out of the body and is termed aura or bioenergy field. Thus, this radiation field has the information about the individual's physiological and mental status as well. It is pretty much connected to everything: electromagnetic radiation, your health, psychic attacks, everything. Is it the same as the aura? So according to some definitions, the human biofield is pretty much the same thing as aura. And then according to other definitions, the biofield goes a little bit deeper because the aura is part of the human biofield, and then it kind of extends into the heart. So there's always this huge emphasis with the heart connection, the heart-brain connection, and just the auric field, and it all ties into one, and that's supposed to be the human biofield. So it really depends on what definition you want to go by, but if you can envision your aura, then you pretty much got most of the biofield. However, this graphic right here symbolizes very well how it just all ties into it. So you have this extension that happens outside of the organism, which is the human body. And then you have these different wavelengths that are entering the heart right here. There's a connection to the brain, which is not depicted in this graphic. And then the way it radiates out again is a different wavelength than how it entered. And that is the best depiction I could find on the human biofield and how you can actually deal with it in different circumstances. Why is the human biofield so important? This is the first thing that other people are picking up on when you meet them, be it energetically or physically. And you always know the term that, some people are very instinctual, but that pets in general, let's just say dogs, cats, horses, they can really tune into your biofield. And so let's just say you're trying to ride a horse or you're trying to approach an animal or whatever. And this animal can sense your anxiety, your fear, or that you're scared. Well, other humans cannot pick up on that in the same way that this animal could, but the animal is actually really tuning into your auric field, into your biofield. And so they're going to react in an instinctual way. They're either going to be aggressive or try to dominate you, especially when you're riding a horse. For people who know how that is, they're trying to throw you off. And then for dogs, it could be that they try to either attack you or just try to get away from you. So this is actually really, really important because our biofields and our energy fields in general are under pretty intense attack. And they're under attack over these past few years for sure because of the EMF radiation and EMR that's going on around us. So that's, of course, the Wi-Fi, the cell phone towers, every single thing that's around us. It is really doing a number on our biofields, but there's also other things, entity attachments, just you feeling, what they're trying to do with our mental states right now over these past 4+ years already, but for sure over these past 2 years, they're trying to really throw us a number. And when your mental state is fear, anxiety, and worry, that's going to have an impact on your emotional field, on your energy field, on your biofield. So this human biofield or biofield in general is connected to everything out there. And it is very important to regulate it. And you can regulate it through nervous system exercises. You can regulate it through certain things. I'm going to pull up a few more definitions here. So one that I found very important was the significance of the heart. So the human biofield and the heart-brain coherence. The heart holds a special significance in sound healing due to its unique role in the human's body's physiological and energetic aspect. Also, as the most powerful generator of rhythmic information patterns in the body, the heart acts effectively as a global conductor in the body's symphony to bind and synchronize the entire system. What is the human biofield? It's the complex interplay between the heart and the entire human system, and it's the subject of much research and inquiry. There has even been this one study, I pulled up the study, which was published in 2012, and I'm sure it was conducted a few years before that. This had to do with Japanese students, if I'm not mistaken, because all their names look Japanese to me. The effect of the biofield therapy in the human brain. There was the Okada purifying therapy named OPT, and it's just a therapy form that regulates the biofield. It's a form of subtle energy therapy that originated in Japan, and it was being investigated. So they used a certain device and also the profile of mood state scores that were measured using a crossover design during the OPT and other placebo sessions. And what they found, because each session lasted 15 minutes, that the therapy, when they were using the therapy, the results were stronger than when they were just using the placebo sessions on other students. So there is some scientific evidence that biofield tuning does work, or that certain therapies actually work. It's not just humbug and people just saying, oh, it's a placebo effect, it doesn't work. Like so many other people try to do that with all these other type of energy work therapies too. But no, there have been a few studies on it over the years. And so I found that personally very interesting because I had to start regulating it, especially recently again. But I've been working with the human biofield, I want to say, from 2017 on, and consciously with sound 2018 and on. So I use tuning forks. I have these two favorite tuning forks, which I don't think the microphone is really going to pick up on, but I have these two. These are weighted tuning forks. So you have some that aren't as heavy. The weights are here on the tips for people who aren't sure about tuning forks. These are pretty solid. You can have a multitude of different ones. I use a handful of ones, but you really only need one or two, especially if you're working on yourself. And I've been working with these pretty recently in my own energy field because I had that entire drama with the puppies a few months ago that was really rattling up my entire nervous system again. And then I was like, well, I have all the sound healing tools here. I have crystal singing bowls, I have Tibetan singing bowls, I have my own voice, and I have these tuning forks. And I do have to say the tuning forks were very effective, very, very effective. So I have the 256 C and the 128 hertz C note for people who are curious. But I know others work with different types of frequencies. So it's really just what you're drawn to and which part you want to emphasize it on. Some are more heart-centered and heart-based. Others are just for different areas, like more like the head area or other parts of the body. So there's this complex interplay between the hearts and the entire human system. And a lot of people have tried to research this. And the heart's field can be measured on the body with an ECG and off the body with machines called squid-based magnetometers. So there are definitely devices out there that can actually measure these things, right? The heart's electrical field. This is not necessarily the auric field, but since it's all connected, it's measuring pretty much the same that you want to have measured when you're working with the biofield. And then there's this entire interaction when you go with emotions and cultivating compassion too. So emotions play a huge role in your biofield, because if you're emotionally rattled up or you're anxious and worried and fearful, which is basically the state they want us in for the past few years already, but possibly our entire lives. If we look at how the news are geared, how mainstream media, TV shows, every single thing is geared, it's not necessarily there to make us feel happy, right? It's there to really rattle up our emotions, rattle up the state of mind that we're supposed to be in. Like I was just watching this one preview of this animal-based movie. It was about dogs or whatever. And something just left me with such a bitter aftertaste, because it was this oversimplified version of how dogs may communicate in real life. Whereas really, just because I have my own pet and everything too, I know it just goes so much deeper than that. And so every single time I even try to tune into the mainstream TV shows or whatever's going on right now, whatever they throw at us, I'm just like, this is really just not, there's no depth to it really, because the ones that are really deep, they never make it into the mainstream. Let's put it that way. Like the really independent ones or the really good movies, you have to dig up, you know, you really have to know where to look for them. And so those never make it into the mainstream at all. And so whatever you have in the mainstream is, it just lacks so much depth. It's an oversimplification, and a lot of it is just flat out false and untrue. So that was just another example of how it showed me in real life, where I'm like, okay, this is an oversimplification of how animals work. And there are definitely people out there that know more about it, such as animal communicators and other people, right? But they don't even get their own TV show most of the time because the mainstream doesn't want to promote that. They want people in a certain state of mind. And I do think a lot of it has to do with, they don't want you in the depth at all. They don't want people to have deep conversations, question their reality, just talk to each other and be like, hey, where are we really? How do we get out of where we are? You know, how does this entire matrix reality come together? Are we even in the matrix reality? They don't want people to really know that. Of course, they have to disclose it in certain movies, like the actual Matrix movies or the Star Wars series. But people just don't get that they're actually disclosing it in that. At least most people don't, unless you're really awake to this. Like if you're watching this channel, obviously you know, but most people don't understand that's a form of disclosure and consent that they're giving. But yeah, that might be a topic for another video. So how can you achieve this heart-brain coherence with healing sounds? What this article in particular is mentioning is, you know, you need to find a relaxed state. Very, very important. Also, in order to tune into a certain brainwave frequency, the same thing. You need to find a relaxed state. You have to either sit down, lie down, whatever it takes for you to just relax, take a few deep breaths in, bring attention to the present moment. For some people, meditation really works. I'm not talking about group meditations or 10-day silent meditations where you're not talking to anyone at all. But for some people, if you just do it on your own terms, and if that's the way you quiet your mind, then that's just the way that you're able to kind of tune down from the worrisome, busy mind that we all have, right? And just kind of tune from that into your heart center, which is very, very important. You can use Tibetan singing bowls. I find Tibetan singing bowls very effective. You can do a few select tuning forks, such as there's another hertz frequency here, the 528 hertz weighted tuning fork. I think that's the stereotypical one they use for biofield tuning, by the way. Because it's probably the heart-centered one, the most heart-centered hertz frequency out there is what I'm thinking. Then you can also use crystal singing bowl meditations or just crystal singing bowls in general. Oh, here's a really good one, gong baths. I remember I went to this one person who had a gong. He had like this huge gong, like this humongous gong. Not just a tiny one, but this huge one. Oh my gosh, I don't even know how many thousands of dollars that cost, but it was such a joy to go to his sound baths. This is back in the day when there were still so many fun events going on. And he would do the gong. So he would have crystal singing bowls and he would have the gong at the very end. It was like perfect end to a very powerful sound healing session. There's just something about gongs that's amazing. If you've ever experienced a gong, like at one point I wanted my own gong. That's how impressed I was by that. But you know, you really have to know how to play it right because it's so powerful. It can really rattle your system up. So flute meditation, that's good too. And just singing, just like a singing, using your voice for singing, which can also be quite powerful. But some people don't like to sing. It can be hard to express yourself that way, especially if people have told you before when you were a kid or whatever, oh, I don't like your singing. So there's a lot of inhibitions about singing in general, I find, with people. A biofield tune introduces a coherent sound into the energy field, allowing the body's nervous system to release subtle energy that is creating dissonance in our lives. And activating a tuning fork or any of these other sound healing tools that we discussed in the biofield offers your body the information it needs to recalibrate itself. So it's all about recalibrating yourself and really working with a nervous system that is possibly rattled up at this point, which for a lot of people, I do think to a certain degree it is. If you're not working on it regularly, you don't even have to have a traumatizing experience or some major trigger, but just in general, you know, if you're living in a city, as an example, you're living in a city, there's all this noise, you know, the trucks, the cars, the honking, the trains, whatever it is. Or if you're living somewhere where there's just a lot of disturbances, interruptions, like these EMF towers and a whole bunch of Wi-Fi, like it's just stuff like that that just accumulates, right? So you always have to be a little bit aware of that. And there are other ways too. So some people work with, let me just pull up the other list. You can do a therapeutic touch. That can also be a form of biofield tuning, and certain forms of Reiki. Now, if you're doing Reiki, don't use the symbols because the symbols can open up portals for other entities to come through. They can also imprint something on you, especially the first and the second one. The third one is very strange, the remote symbol in Reiki. So I personally would rather stay away from that. Here are more images from the biofield energy, which I thought were really interesting. So it's like, you know, if you do, I don't know if you've ever done aura photography. I've done it quite a few times. And every time the aura looks different because your emotional state is different. So I've had colors such as blue and green that were the typical colors. And all of a sudden I had like a rainbow color a year later. And it changes all the time. It can change several times a day, but obviously you don't always have the means to take a picture of your aura several times a day. And then I had purple. I actually had this color, purple, and something else in it at one point too. It's such a fun method. And I do think it's true, by the way. I do think there are measurements and devices out there that can measure color in your auric field or biofield. So other changes in your biofield can be parasitic infection, genetic mutation, arterial constriction, etc. And this can produce a corresponding modification in the bioenergy field that in turn would lead to various diseases. The biofield is very much connected, just like I had in a different video. Everything that manifests in the energetic realm and emotional realm will manifest in the physical at one point, and will manifest if it's not being addressed and it's not being released in a proper, wholesome way, or it's not being healed in a form or another. It's going to have to express itself somehow, and that's usually in the physical, such as illnesses, diseases. Now, there was this one question that had to do with, oh, what about people who have Lyme or all these other diseases, like weaponized diseases? Those still form in the energetic realm, very much so. And some people are more impacted by, let's just use Lyme as an example. They're more impacted by Lyme than others because some of them have, you know, a different type of immune structure. I think that has a lot to do with it too. But some of them just work with it in different ways too. So some people, the people that are going to be more impacted are the ones I feel where their nervous system is impacted from the start to begin with. So it's very important for you to start healing these things before they throw all these other energy weapons at us. But I'm going to go deeper into that specific one because it's so elaborate, honestly. Like all of these illnesses they're trying to throw at us that are not necessarily natural in that sense. I'm going to go into that in a different video because you can't overgeneralize at all. But what I know from a fact, just having worked with several different people who had Lyme and all of that, some people are going to be impacted by it way more than others. And the progression of that entire illness and disease is also very, very different from person to person. And there are different reasons for that. Of course, you have that physical component of, yeah, it's a man-created disease. I think we all know that if you're watching this channel, it's not a natural disease at all. But on the other hand, there are different layers to that. And so it's very important to address that. It's also very important to address them in the beginning stage, but obviously it's not gonna, that hasn't been the case for everyone because it's been such a newer disease as opposed to others that have been around for longer. So my one video, how does disease manifest? I'm going to link that first in the energetic realm, and then in the emotional, then in the auric field, and then in the physical. So it's all related to one another. you need to regulate the nervous system regularly. And you can regulate it with this. Now, other things that tie into it, let's just go back to this graphic here. The brainwave frequency. Okay. So in order, and this is something that I just came across recently again, which is why I'm including it in this one, because I feel they're all related. So in order, you can't really manifest great things when you're so rattled up and so shaken up and your entire auric field and biofield is out of balance. So you need to start balancing things out no matter what. And it's not going to be that bad for a lot of people. It's just if you really had something trigger or traumatize you recently, you should probably get to balancing it out really quick, because the longer of an imbalance it is, I mean, I don't want to say the worse it is to heal, but it just gets harder and harder and harder. So it's easier to do if it's only been like a few months old or maybe a year old, as opposed to like 5 or 10 years old. Let's put it that way. Manifesting with the power of brain waves. Are brain waves more important than thoughts? And the frequency of the brain waves. So I think it's a mix of things. I think thoughts are still very much important when you try to manifest. But in order to manifest, it is helpful when you are in a certain brainwave frequency to start out with. And some people call this the theta. Other people call it the alpha. Theta or theta, theta, not beta, but with a th. I mean, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I personally don't know what frequency, but it's the frequency that you have when you're calm. And that's what I do know. And so it is very important for you, before you try to manifest anything, which you're manifesting regularly every single day. If you want to achieve something in your life, you're trying to manifest, you're trying to create something. Manifest comes from hands, mani, and creating something in your life. So it is important to do this in order to create. Is the brainwave frequency more important than thoughts? Yes and no. For sure, you're going to have a hard time manifesting positive things when you are down, angry, or sad. So it is important for you to change your mindset around and get into, okay, so in order to create this in my life, or in order to manifest this in my life, I need to be in a more upbeat mood, and I need to think a bit more upbeat thoughts. But it's also important to be in the same brainwave frequency. And the way you get there is by finding that silent time, that quiet time, possibly meditation for some. It can be just clearing your mind, going for a walk, going for a run. Some people do moving meditations too. It's all in the same category. And in order to actually think clearly, we do need to get away from all those busy thoughts they're throwing at us. The worries, the fears, the anxiety, they're all still part of the matrix system. And we do need to find that deeper connection to our hearts. And we do that once we get out of the headspace. So the head and the mind are a tool of their own, which I have a video on that too, but it all needs to be well balanced. There's the power of the mind. We can work with that as a tool as well. Like you can change illnesses with the power of your mind. You can do a lot of things with it, but there's a time and space for it. And we do have to clear our mind. Okay, so that was manifesting with brainwave frequencies. So it is helpful when you are in a certain on a certain brainwave frequency. And this is how the biofield tuning, the nervous system regulation, and the brainwaves all tie into one. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions or anything to add to it. And it's such a complex subject, but it is very simple overall. I don't even think you have to take these elaborate, I don't even know how many hours, 200-hour long courses on biofield tuning. If you want to, you could, very clearly. But if you already have a bit of a background in energy healing and you're kind of drawn to it, I think it would be easier to pick up on it. Most of the time, we're already doing this. I've been doing this biofield tuning without consciously knowing, really, for the past 6+ years already, since 2018 on. But I didn't even really know there was a word to that. until I started digging into this quite recently again. I'm like, oh, I've been doing that all along. I've been doing that in my sessions all along. I've been working with tuning forks no matter what, too, be it in the shamanic healing sessions or the DNA healing sessions. So a lot of it is very similar to each other. And a lot of it is clearing the biofield, clearing the auric field, the energy field. And these can be very handy. I do like the weighted ones a little bit better than the ones that don't have those two weights at the end. There's just something different to it, but I don't think it's necessary. If you're drawn to other types of tuning forks, just go with those two. I just really, really like these. And yeah, let us know what you think. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a good one.